Hi everyone, welcome back to my Elden Ring series where I make a build for every melee weapon in the game. In today's video, I'll be covering the Erdsteel Dagger. This weapon is a dagger that requires 7 strength, 12 dexterity, and 14 faith to wield. You can acquire 2 of these in one playthrough, one being given to you by Kenneth Haight after clearing out his fort in Limgrave, and another can be found in the Landell Royal Capital. For this weapon, I decided to go with a faith-based power stance build with 2 sacred infused Erdsteel daggers, as well as the Erdtree seal in my back pocket for casting incantations. The Erdsteel dagger is one of very few weapons in the game that has inherent faith scaling but can still be infused. As such, leaning all the way into faith with something like a sacred infusion can offer very good damage at high faith levels. It definitely feels like this weapon was designed for faith builds. For my Ash of War, I am using Sacred Order, which provides a weapon buff that boosts all damage and gives a major increase in damage dealt to undead enemies. Interestingly, this buff actually applies to your offhand weapon as well if you are power stancing, which we will be taking advantage of. The fact that it is a weapon buff means that it can also stack with other buffs of different categories, such as the Golden Vow Incantation, which is under the category of aura buffs. The primary playstyle for this build involves buffing ourselves with Sacred Order and or Golden Vow at the beginning of boss fights or enemy encounters, and then utilizing the lightning fast power stance dagger attacks to deal high damage at close range. In situations where we want to use ranged attacks, we can cast offensive incantations like Lightning Spear, which also has the benefit of dealing lightning damage in case we are fighting enemies resistant to holy damage. Since this is a pure faith build, we have the option to use pretty much any incantations in the game, so feel free to go crazy with your incantations of choice. Since the Sacred Infusion provides split physical and holy damage, we may run into trouble when fighting bosses or groups of enemies that are resistant to holy damage. In that case, we have the option to switch to a Flame Art Infusion, which provides the same scaling, just giving us fire damage instead of holy. And this is true for any infusible weapon on a faith build. Now on to our stats. At level 150, I have 55 Vigor, 25 Mind, 28 Endurance, 10 Strength, 12 Dexterity, 10 Intelligence, 79 Faith, and 10 Arcane. This gives us a balanced setup in terms of health, FP, and stamina and equip load. Depending on how much you want to use incantations, there's definitely wiggle room to move some points from Endurance or Vigor to Mind to give us more FP, especially since the equipment I am using is pretty light, as you will see. All of our damage scaling for both our daggers and our incantations comes from Faith, so we are pumping that as high as we can and leaving all other damage stats at minimum requirements. Now for my armor, I'm really happy with the fit I was able to put together this time. The theme that I went for was the sort of warrior nobleman, and fun fact, according to the item description, the Erdsteel Dagger was carried by nobles, so I'd even call this a lore accurate build. I'm using the Ruler Mask, which has the added benefit of giving us +1 faith, bringing us from 79 to 80 overall. I also have the Altered Page chest piece, the Landell Knight gauntlets, and the Warrior Greaves. I really like how all these pieces match together, even though they're all from different armor sets. For my talismans, a lot of familiar faces this time. First of all, the Rotten Wing Sword insignia. This gives us increased damage after successive attacks, which is perfect for power stance daggers. Then we have the Two-Headed Turtle talisman for stamina recovery, the Dragon Crest Great Shield for defense, and the Crusade insignia for a temporary damage boost after defeating enemies. There is some consideration for using the Holy Scorpion charm with this setup, but this weapon's damage split is pretty much an even 50-50 between physical and holy, so I don't really think it's worth the penalty of taking more damage. For the Flask of Wondrous Physic, I am using the Holy Shrouded Crack tier for more holy damage, and the Opaline Hard tier for more defense. And that is going to bring us to the end of this video. Here is an overview of our setup from the menu screen. Thank you for watching, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.